Hello and welcome to The View from 4 Feet and 3 Inches. I'm your host, Cassidy Huff. I have medium length blonde hair just below my shoulders. It is down today. I have my black rimmed glasses on, my silver nose ring. I have a red, dark red-ish t-shirt on today, and behind me is a white background. And whenever you see that white background on my podcast, it's because I have a wonderful virtual guest with me today. And today's guest is Dot Johnson. Hi, Dot. How are you?
Hi, I'm nervous, but I'm so happy to be with you today, and I feel so honored. So
I'm so
thank you for
excited to
having
have you
me.
on. Do you want to do a quick visual description?
Yes, so I have brown hair that is tied back, although I have some grays that are shooting up here fast. I am wearing a gray Georgetown sweatshirt, which is where I went. I'm repping my alma mater, and I am, let's see, wearing headphones, and I have a little chapstick on, and I'm sitting in front of my grandparents' china cabinet filled with some of my most favorite cookbooks, coming to you live from my kitchen. I am
I
a
love
white
it.
woman who looks pretty tired because she still has a 4-year-old that gets in her bed. So yeah,
You said you have a
it's a whole
four-year-old.
thing. I have a 4-year-old and an 8-year-old. So
Oh,
I had my second when I was 41, which is why we'll get into what babies in your 40s does to your body, because I have
mm.
some new things that I deal with that I have no idea how to deal with most of the
Yeah.
times. So
Well,
yeah.
I'm so excited to dish. I know we were just
Yeah,
talking
yeah.
before we started recording. I don't think, have ever sat down face to face, just the two of us before.
Mm-mm, mm-mm.
Do you
And
want to talk a little bit about how we met?
yeah, we met on the campaign. I have a 20-year marketing career in strategy and brand development. I was asked to come onto the campaign right literally the day that Kamala accepted the nomination. Someone from the campaign reached out and asked. I had met her through certain circles and kind of stalked her about being helpful. And she said, I've got a role for you to play, and it's the Women for Harris Coalition Manager for Virginia. And I was blown away. I was literally in the Safeway buying paper plates for the watch party for her speech accepting the nomination when this happened. And um, it was my first foray into a political campaign outside of kind of growing up around it. And I got to work hitting the ground running on that 100-day sprint. And one of the calls I made that I still feel a little guilty about it being so late in the game when I called, but because of my own personal experiences and a few other factors, I decided to try to reach out to disabled voter communities and discover the Disabled Voters for Harris group. And then that's when I discovered Cassidy and her friends and became completely like a total fangirl of all of your posts and content, and said, we've got to be working with these folks. And I did everything I could uh, to try to make that happen. But it it was such a fast moving train. And as you know, I think part of us continuing to talk is about what can we do now, even in advance of races in November or primaries or next year. I'm trying to stay plugged in and engaged in terms of building better infrastructure for the community, both statewide and if I can be helpful, I will in any race or state try to help organizers think through things that I learned because of y'all. And so we got to talk on a few calls and get to know each other. And then, of course, I like DM you like a stalker. So that's kind of how I know Cassidy. And then after the campaign, life kind of went back to quote unquote normal, whatever that is for all of us now. And I run my strategy practice and raise my 2 kids. And I'm just trying to row my little boat just like everybody else.
I love that. Well, I remember, actually, that's a lie. I don't remember getting the call of being like, "Can you come work on the Harris campaign?" Because that was just the goal. Um, we never really had a plan with how we were going to approach the campaign and ask to work with them. We were just like, they're gonna listen. So, so
I think we all thought that.
yeah, I was like, they will listen to me, and I'm gonna go in there, guns blazing, and if
Mhm.
they don't listen to me, they're gonna very quickly learn who I am and like what I'm all about, and that, the disabled people are a huge voting bloc and a giant demographic. And I really felt like the campaign was missing that mark a little bit. And so I was like, okay, How can I get in these rooms? Where are these rooms? Are they virtual? Are they in person? What am I doing? I'm 22. So I was literally just going in there and being like, hello, my name is Cassidy. I have absolutely
You would have
no
fit in faster than me because I was like, I didn't realize how old I was until I hung out with the campaign folks. I, in my head, am like forever 21, and I rolled up in there like very much in my like, I guess, Obama era attitude. And I was very much very quickly reminded, like, I think they called me campaign mom like the minute I showed up. And I was like, is that what? I was like, I'm cool, fun, Dot. And it was like, then they started calling me elder, and I was like, I'm sorry. I was like, well, if I'm elder, you're kid. Everybody get okay with our pronouns now or our nouns. So
Yeah.
it's a, but that's where I've appreciated you so much because I have to say that, like, in social media land sometimes, again, I didn't really realize the season of life I was in and the categories we put each other in. And yet, to our conversations about like how my own journey with hearing loss and my different issues has gone, it's hitting so quote unquote late that it's like a form of puberty almost, where I'm like, how does this work when I can't use something I've used my whole life all of a sudden? And you've been so welcoming and generous with your time and advice, as have some of your friends. And this is why I join these rev up calls, because I'm like, I need this, you know? And so I have to say to anybody listening who's maybe a little older, don't be as afraid of reaching out to some of the younger folks on social media. They will be a lot nicer than you think. And then some of us older folks, um, I think sometimes we're not, at least I wasn't as self-aware of like, I'm learning every day about ways that this impacts my life and my kids. And so many young people have taught me the way. The world is so different for you guys. And most of my blocks are like mental with it all, like
Mm,
in terms of understanding how it's impacting me day to day. But we
yes.
can get into that in a minute.
Yeah, actually, I want to get into you before the campaign, kind of how you came into where you are now, like who you are, what you're all about, for those who maybe don't know you.
So I thank you for asking. I am in my mid 40s now, and that's even weird to say because, like, again, my co-host, I have a podcast that is, we started a podcast like the day after the election, called Moms Have No Party. And that's for a lot of different reasons I'll get to in a minute. But my co host and I have been friends since Georgetown. So I had to rep like where we met. Adrian is in Arkansas, and I am here in Virginia. And I was born in the Deep South in Alabama, in Mobile, Alabama, and grew up in the pool, swimming, very active, roller skating, riding bikes. Just a real kind of, I was a Girl Scout. Like I loved camping out. I loved playing volleyball, and did all the things and did all the things through college. I booked shows in college. I was like a, it's not a cheerleader role per se, but it's like a spirit booster kind of club person in high school and a student government leader, and studied really, really hard. And this is all leading up to something because I studied really, really hard. And I always felt like I was working like three times harder than a lot of folks. And then in college, I started to get a little bit of help with some academic help that I mean, some academic problems I was running into. And maybe some emotional, like some of it was a little bit mental health, I suppose, as well. And they diagnosed me first as ADHD, and with like, maybe you have anxiety. We're not sure. Let's try this. And we were sort of that like early test case for ADHD when Ritalin and Adderall were just coming on the market. And it was kind of like a whole new thing. And I have to say that like Driven to Distraction was a sea change of a book when it first came out. And to read that in college, I felt like, oh my gosh, I feel like there's a name for something that I've been feeling. And so we're treating something sort of medically in a way that behaviorally, like from the way I was acting and the struggles I was having, it certainly was a symptom, was either a distracted outlook or anxiety. Um, but then so I struggled in college, and that was sort of like the first sign that maybe now that I look back, I realized it was like this was how it was impacting me because I was studying just as hard as I was in high school, um, but I was writing what I thought I had heard down in class. And when you get to college, the classes get even bigger and you're sitting farther away. And I didn't want to sit in the front. I didn't want to be called on all the time. And I think back to what I was going through in those early survey classes where you're in like with 200 people taking, English 1 or something and or literature or something. And I was I was studying what I had written down and I wrote down what I thought I heard. And I did not want to raise my hand to ask them to repeat things. And there certainly wasn't any like, no, rarely was there a microphone used in these survey classes. So when I look back at it now, I see somebody that was struggling in school because she wasn't getting all the information she needed. She didn't even know that this was a factor in what was going on. And then because you're struggling in school, there's other mental health issues and anxiety that are creeping up. And then you kind of stick to doing things that you feel like you're doing really well. And for me, those were a lot of extracurriculars. For me, I was looking at a lot of the extracurricular activity I was doing, and so much of it was marketing, even back then, when I think about the activities that I was into. Now, unfortunately, I was into activities that probably didn't help my hearing because it involved like screaming at basketball games and cheering and uh, using a bullhorn and listening to concerts way too up close, like literally for days, having ringing in my ears and not understanding like I had a problem. And so that was sort of like I only look back at that now and go like, God, there was such a situation happening that like I didn't know how to even think about. So then I finally graduated, although I left Georgetown twice. I say that I got in 3 times, which is harder to do. It's hard to get in the first time, but it's harder to do later. And the reason I'm telling this sort of life story is that I got out to LA. I moved out to LA after college. Yeah, this is like why I watch all the stuff you're doing, and I'm like, I see you. I went out there with Adrian, my best friend. We both were going to go off, and we were going to be like Ben Affleck and Matt Damon and write like the woman's version of Good Will Hunting. Um and we really had that could be a whole nother conversation as far as like some of the incredible things that we got to do out there. And I dated a composer, and one day he was screwing around with like his studio equipment, and he was like a composer for film and TV and stuff, and they were fixing the speakers in their house, and they were all responding to something and I couldn't hear it, and I was like, you're just being really OCD, this is crazy. No, there's no feedback, there's nothing happening here. And they both looked at me like, you need a hearing test like now. And I went and got my hearing checked, and I had the hearing, they said, of like an 80-year-old woman, and it had been that way for a long time. And I had report card after report card in so many ways about like how loud I was, or people perceived me as disruptive, or um, just doesn't has details missing in her work. I was always like a strong B- student, and yet I'm working so hard. And I moved back to DC, broke up with the composer. He was a great guy, though. And when I got to DC, I started investigating the hearing problem, and it was discovered that I had mastoiditis in both ears, which is where there's a cavity behind your ear that kind of helps with balance. Maybe you know this through your own journey. And mine was severely diseased. It had been infected for a long time, probably, he said, since birth, something I was born with, and that progressively um, was causing I had a lot of ear infections growing up. Constantly, if I jumped in the pool, I was getting an ear infection. I had tubes put in a number of times, and I had never really connected that to my academic performance or any of the like kind of just social feedback I got. And again, I think that's why I was drawn to like concerts and sports, because you could be loud there and it was acceptable.
You could hear.
So I could hear. That's a good point. See, I had not thought about it. It was loud enough to where I could hear. I wasn't going to any poetry readings. Let's just leave it there. But, um, and probably why I was inspired to go out to LA. You're sitting in a movie theater, you're watching screeners, you're seeing the feedback with other people in real time. And once I started exploring, it started with mastoiditis, and then over the course of my career and my life, it's developed into a number of different issues and conditions in terms of I had that corrected, and then I developed cholesteatoma, which is where cysts kind of grow in your ear because it's unable to fully kind of clear things out. It's just this weird, kind of gross thing. I feel embarrassed about it, to be honest. Still, it's hard for me to talk about. So I have this really weird degenerative ear, couple of conditions with my hearing in my ears. And um, then so I have a 20-year career in marketing. Of course, I'm still like pitching and talking and writing and doing storytelling in sort of an entertaining way. And then I had kids, and after my first, um, I had an ear infection. I went swimming for the first time after I had my son, trying to work out, trying to take care of myself, and I got an ear infection, and I ignored it because I was a new mother trying to take care of my baby, and it destroyed my inner ear. And I had to have a total reconstruction of my right ear, and still have only like 40%, 50, maybe 50% on a good day hearing. I had a prosthetic put in, which was a nightmare. And um, when I had my second, uh, the prosthetic was when you have a baby, your soft tissues change and you deal with inflammation and your body changes. And the prosthetic was slowly being like spat out of my ear. And that is not a fun thing to go through, especially when you have a baby that is, he had one of those screams that was like a pterodactyl, like it's gonna like bone rattling kind of screaming. And it would cause feedback like static in my head. Um,
Whoa, that's a
and
really good
so,
way of putting that. I
yeah, I
do.
don't know. Do you get the
I
static?
get the I get the static. I get it.
Like I feel like a fax machine is going off in my head.
I've
Oh my
never
God.
even put that into words. That I've been like, yeah, it's just like it's like ringing, but it's not ringing, and it's like,
No,
like
it's
I
like
get,
it's like a fat like early internet sounds. Like, did you
yeah,
ever?
yeah,
You're too
yeah,
young, but like there's
yeah.
early internet sounds. So, and I would tell this to my ear doctor, and he would be like, That's not. I've never heard of that before." And I was like, "I'm." So what you're saying is I'm going crazy, like on top
So when
of
you're saying it's in my
losing
head,
my hearing.
cool.
And he was like, "That just can't be. I've never heard of that." And I was like, between being postpartum, dealing with all of that. Um, I'm going on and on, but the point is that it was really a 20-year journey, really lifetime journey that I didn't know I was on, and then I'm still trying to learn about it, and that's what led me into your community and the disabled community, even though my relationship with that term is really tricky. So
Yeah,
I've been
no, I
trying to
totally.
adopt more of it, but it's hard.
It is hard, and I don't think enough people. I don't even really think we've talked about it on the show. Maybe a little bit, but um, you've seen my podcast before, and I have a lot of friends who were either became disabled when they were very, very young, or like early childhood, or they were born like me with their disabilities. And so, and I always tell my friend Jane Mattingly, who has been on the show, that I struggle with maintaining friendships with people who became disabled later on in life. Because sorry, my cat is screaming in the background.
Ah, it's okay. He hears you. He's like, we don't like them either.
He's blind. So
Mhm.
he's like, yeah. Um, but yeah, I really struggle with maintaining friendships with people who became disabled later on in life because they're such different experiences. And we're all in the same community, but I don't think we've ever talked about it on the show because I I never really had to come into that identity of accepting the term disabled. I mean, I did, but I kind of always knew that that term fit me in a way. I've always had kind of an up and down relationship with the term because other people have defined it for me. And then I've been like, no, actually, this is how I want to define myself. Not that over there. But I think it's really interesting the way that people have different relationships with just the word and the community in and of itself. And so I think that's why I was really drawn to your story because you texted me, I think, and you were like, I just listened to the episode with Alyssa and who's a deaf.
Crying in the grocery again, like it's all I do. I should write a book called Crying in the Grocery. It's like apparently my thing. I'm in the grocery for these like profound moments, and I was texting you being like, I have to stop what I'm doing. I have to go sit in my car. This episode is like, oh my God, she's describing my life. And she was from my hometown, which is even
Really?
crazier. She's from Mobile. I was like, who's from Mobile? Like, nobody ever interviews anybody from Mobile, and that's where I was born. So I was like, I have to talk to her and we have to be friends. But yeah, your episodes are so educational and enlightening. I wish again, all of this and so much of this, I'm so grateful in a way that I went through it later because I think if I was younger, I wouldn't have had the inner maturity to understand it as a gift as much. And at least the generation, like it is generational. Like the world you're growing up in, I do think is so different than the way it was perceived when I was younger. And I'm so glad that that's changed, but it's probably had a lot to do with why I didn't put my hand up because there were so many ways when we were in this weird interregnum between we were coming out of like understanding disability as like one specific thing or like a group of specific people to really understanding the divergent ways that people can have disabilities and the invisible ways people can have them. And I was there for that weird, awkward in between, like any good young Gen Xer. I'm on the very tail end of Gen X. And there was a lot of like, oh, she's not disabled or he's not this or they're, why do they need extended testing? They're just like not trying very hard. And I went to Catholic school for a long time, both elementary and in high school. And there is this perception, ironically, amongst very classical educational environments. And there was at Georgetown, even when I thought I had a diagnosis for ADHD, it was like, I remember being told you have to go somewhere that can attend to your needs better and you go like, this is wild. I felt like I was an 18-year-old, 19-year-old, and I was like, oh yeah, I guess I should. But now looking back, I'm like, it's wild when you sit, like I got in. So I just didn't know how to describe what I was going through. And I didn't realize, I have to say this to any parents who might be listening. I did, it's so crazy how our experience as adults, like if you're older like me and had your kids younger, I mean, when you were older, we displace our experience onto them even though the world has changed and we don't realize like the world has changed underneath of us and that we should be their advocates even if we didn't have one. So I've had to learn like I've internalized all this like try harder, it's your fault attitude
Yeah.
as opposed to what's going on that's getting in your way, how can I empower you and lift you up. That is a sea change for some of us that are a little bit older.
Mm.
That's why I'm like, I need younger friends because people my age don't get it either, and we're all like, rub some dirt on it, and
It'll be fine.
that's not gonna, it's not going to work with some of this stuff. But
You're like, how do I get the dirt in my ear? It's not
yeah, well, the dirt is in my ear, and it's not helping. I have to go like every 3 months and get a special little cleaning done, and that's tedious and annoying because I'd rather go get my nails done. And so, yeah, it's tricky. The experience of parenthood, um, little things like one, the impact of my son's crying on my hearing, and then being hearing impaired to where I couldn't hear them crying. Like I had to sleep in the room with my son, and people will look at you. And this is again where there's this invisible thing about, well, why don't you just put him in his own bed? It's like, because I can't hear if he cries, if he falls out, if he jumps out of his crib, I literally can't hear him in the other room.
Yeah,
So I would sleep with him for, maybe longer than most parents would just to know he was safe.
right.
And um, maybe that's why God gave me a second child with one hell of a scream because he knew that like I was at this point really struggling. But I had a question for you. When to
Yeah.
your point about like growing up always kind of knowing or having this term, I think on the flip side, it must have been frustrating to be like, that's not all I am. That's not the
Mm.
only thing that I am, but it is so much a part of, you've embraced it in such a beautiful way that I wonder sometimes, what was it like growing up in that different world that I didn't grow up with because I think it must be it I don't know how I would have responded if I had been sort of classified early on.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I
So
don't know how you were like growing up just embracing it and at the same time not wanting everybody to just see you a certain way.
yeah, I think that's the misconception about me is that I've always embraced it, and that's just not the case. I grew up very confident in who I was and very confident in what I could do. Um, but I rejected the term disabled and disability for a really long time. I forever was like, I'm not disabled. I'm differently abled, which I hate now. Um, and if that's how you identify, get it. But that is not how I identify now because there are things that I can't do, and that's okay. But at the time, I was like, no, if you tell me I can't do something, I'm gonna not only do it, but be so good at it that it's undeniable how good at it I am.
Hmm.
And then like I have
That
to
almost compulsive overachieving thing is maybe a thing for us.
just a little bit, yeah.
Even if I don't know that I have it, I'm always compensating for something that
Yeah,
I don't want to be held back by.
exactly. Yeah, so my mom always still jokes. She's like, I can't tell her that she can't do something. She cannot use those words because I'm
What
like,
were you
"You
like as a
go for it."
kid? Were you just as much as who you are? Like, what were you like? I'm like, I want to interview your mom for my podcast.
Please
I
do
love
it.
you, but I'm like, I got to talk to your parents. Like, we have to have some
Yeah, yeah, no,
conversations.
she would love that actually. If you could get us both uh sitting down together, that would be really cool. Because
Let's
I
do
think
it.
she can speak more to this than I can, but from my memory, I was very much the same. I was a little bit of a daredevil child, which did not bode well for my body. Um, but I was always the kid who would go into, hospital appointments right before my 20 something surgery, and I'd be like, okay, so how do we feel about skydiving? And everybody was like, no, your spine is gonna collapse. And I was like, right. But like, are you telling me I can't go skydiving?
So what you're
I
saying is I wear
like
a different harness.
they were like, no one said that you can't do that, okay? We're just saying it might not be the best of ideas.
That's so
Um,
cool though that you were just naturally like that because I think sometimes you grow up with something, some people have chronic conditions and they really, for understandable reasons, like live within them,
yeah,
and that's how what shapes their identity is I can't.
yeah.
And that's so remarkable that you kind of just came out of the womb with like, what are you
Well,
talking
and I
about?
think it really has to do with my upbringing. I was raised by very powerful women. My mom,
Same.
but then my grandmas, who I refer to them as the queen lesbians, because truly they were together for like 30 years, and
Really?
they, yeah, they had
What a
they had a
story.
major, um, hand in me and my sister's upbringing and our childhoods. Um, so they were also integral to how I was raised and to my thought processes behind how I was raised. And they always told me like, you can do anything. Kind of what you tell a child anyways, like you could do anything you set your mind to. And I took that and very quite literally was like, okay. And they were like, oh God. Uh,
Maybe we've sent the wrong
Maybe we said the
signal.
wrong thing. But I, from a very, very, very young age, was drawn to music. And so I was singing and dancing and moving around the room and would force my family to sit down and watch shows that I directed, produced, wrote, starred in, and made my sister be background for. And I was very much a director at heart, even at the young age of 3 or 4. I was teaching myself how to sing. We didn't have money to put me in lessons of any sort. So I was self taught and I loved every single second of it. And so I very quickly became known for my musical abilities. and being able to sing and retain music very well. Turns out I have perfect pitch, which is very interesting because
Oh,
I
wow.
have an inner ear um, on my left side. So don't know how that works. But
That's wild.
yeah, so I didn't know that until I went to a conservatory for the arts for college, and they were like, um,
Perfect pitch, can't hear.
yeah, they were like, "Can
So,
we test her for something?" Like my teachers all like at a meeting, and they were like, "So she's deaf,
wow.
whatever. Like something's not matching." And then I told my
How
family, I was like,
remarkable.
"I think I have perfect pitch." And my family was like, "Yeah,
That
I
would
know."
make sense.
But I very quickly became known for how quickly I memorized lines, how very quickly I became known for uh, how passionate I was about music and how I just could not get enough of it. I was hungry for the stage. I loved being the center of attention. And so I saw myself first and foremost as a performer, not as a disabled performer necessarily, but as a performer. And when other people would look at me sideways, and as I got older, I started hearing, like, well, she doesn't look like the stereotypical, like, performer or like stereotypical lead, I was confused because I was like, okay, I look different and what? And what about it? Like, move on. And then I quickly learned, like, okay, so I do have some disabilities and I can't do everything that everybody else can do, but how do I adapt it so that I can? So that's when school, in college, I really took the bull by the horns and I have a prosthesis. Okay, how do I dance with the prosthesis on? Short story, I don't. That's the short answer. I take it off, but then you're dealing with a 5-inch limb difference, which is crazy and throws off your entire center of balance. And how do you tap dance? How do you do jazz and ballet and Broadway styles? And so I had amazing teachers and I had truly amazing people in my corner, as well as the amazing women who raised me that just always really believed in me. And anytime I would get down and out on myself, and anytime I was really discouraged about my body and what I could and couldn't do, they were there to be like, okay, but like, what's the positive? What can you do? How can we adapt this? How can we figure it out? So I really think that yes, it was me and just kind of my spirit and how I was raised and how I was born, but it was really to do with the amount of people behind me who were there to support me and encourage me and help me with whatever I needed help with. So that's why I always tell people you need to find your people, you need to find your community,
Whew.
and you need to find, the people who will do that for you and who will advocate for you.
So you bring up something that more recently to get into some of the like parent conversations
Yeah.
around this. I just had my son came home with a workbook called Solving Problems with Technology, and there was a story in it that I was struck by because there was a child in a wheelchair and they didn't use the term disabled at all. They only like it was meant to I was very perplexed by it again. I didn't know if I was bringing my own baggage into it, but it just talked about it like he needs a wider entrance for the classroom because his chair doesn't fit through the desks. It didn't name him as a different category of person. And it said something to the effect of like, he doesn't have a disability, his body's just different. And I was like very struck by that about being like, hold on. Because and it literally said it doesn't mean he's not able to do things. Like it was combating the idea of disability, but at the same time, it almost like whitewashed it to use a term like when we talk about being like race blind, for example, like I don't see color. I was like, this is interesting. How do you feel about that, hearing that? Did you have this? Is it, I didn't know if like is my bias showing that I think they should
Yeah.
call him this word? But I was also like struck like he does have some limitations. This is a
Yeah.
real thing. Like to act like there's none and then it's like all on us
Right.
sort of makes the problem not there as
Yeah.
opposed to just saying, hey, we all have different things.
Right. Well, I think there's a campaign that's been around for a while, for a few years, that's called Disability is Not a Bad Word. And I strongly believe in that because it's not. It just means you're not able to do certain things, and if you're ignoring that, that doesn't help you or the disabled person. You know, my mom's philosophy was always, okay, so if I'm gonna tell the kids, the girls, to do chores, then, there are some things Cassie cannot do, but there are some things she can do. And if her sister is going to be, you know, cleaning the cat box, she can't bend down to do that, but she can stand at the sink and wash dishes. So that's what she's going to do.
Right.
So it wasn't necessarily completely ignoring the things that I couldn't do, but it was more about figuring out alternative ways for me to succeed in a world that wasn't built for me. If you are completely ignoring the fact that you have a disability, I don't feel like that is helpful to you in any way, shape, or form because that's how other people see you, you know?
That's what I thought. I was like, it sort of sends him out to the world. Like I sort of got it, but I was also like,
Yeah.
hold on, this is a weird way to address this. And I want to say like I am so fascinated by your maternal and your parental ancestry. So that's like a whole separate conversation that I want to have because I think
Yeah.
are your grandmothers still with us?
They are not. They passed away
I
a
need to see a pic of these
few years
ladies.
ago. Oh, I have one.
They must have been a hoot.
They were.
Because I have to say that my parents, sometimes when I tell my story, it sounds like, well, how did no one check your ears? They were doing everything at the time. And that's where I
Right.
try to remind people too. Like they were doing my mom had my hearing checked all the time. She's the first one to tell people when you see a behavioral issue showing up with your 5 or 6 year old, like go get their hearing checked. It should be a routine thing. If you're listening to me and you're a parent, so many attention span issues and behavioral things, nobody checks their ears and it isn't integrated the way that it needs to be. An ear doctor might bring it up, but a behavioral like GP probably won't, or a pediatrician. And sometimes pediatricians don't even know what they're looking for with ear issues.
Well, they
You
didn't
know,
even
they,
find out that I was hard of hearing till I was about 3 or 4, and I was in preschool, and I had
yeah.
the same thing happen to me where my preschool teacher came to my mom and she was like, Cassidy does not pay attention. She's in her own world. She doesn't follow directions. She talks all the time, which is still the case. But like sorry.
It's not our fault if we're entertaining
Yeah,
and hard of
God.
hearing.
But
Like you can be both.
it was very much like brought to her as a behavioral issue of there's something wrong. She's not listening. She's very creative, but she's in her own world too much and she doesn't follow directions. There's something behaviorally wrong with her. And so I came home every day in tears because I am such a rule follower and still was at that young age that I was so upset that I wasn't following the rules even though I thought I was. And I was getting in trouble for doing what I thought was expected when in reality I just didn't hear the directions. And so that really set off alarm bells in my mom's head of being like, there's this is not the behavior that I know my kid has. Let's go to let's go get something checked out. And then they checked my hearing, and I mean, when I was a baby they checked my hearing and I passed the test because I can hear out of one ear, but my left ear, my inner ear didn't form all the way, so I can't hear out of that ear. And so when they did more in-depth hearing tests, they were like, oh no, she's deaf. My mom was like,
Um, Oh, well, that would probably help. Yeah, try telling your family that when you're like 43, and then we all have to learn like about this thing that we don't know that much about. And it sounds like you're just getting old, like that's just normal. And I'm like, I can't hear my kids in the back of the car and they're right there.
yeah.
I have to say, there's so many things that I want to ask you, but I don't know how long you want to go. I feel like maybe we have like multiple chats to have, but I just want to check in on time with you in
Oh,
terms of
you are
how
all
what
good.
you
We
want to
have,
do.
I mean, we can go as long as we want to. So,
I know, but people don't want to watch like 3 hours. So I didn't know, because I have some questions about work and remote work
yeah.
and how people think that's like the end all be all.
Mm,
Um, I'd love to talk about how it impacts relationships too.
mm,
I wanted to ask you to that point. I think I was trying to make a point that like your parents do the best they can with the tools they have, and like frankly, um, I don't know that everybody was thinking about integrated medicine in the 80s in Mobile, Alabama. Um, I don't know how often you've seen that little white kitty cat with the symbols in the hearing, the audiology room, and I've told them now, I'm like, I don't know the point of these tests because like I've memorized them. I've taken them so often that you can anticipate it. And I'm like, I don't know if I'm really hearing. It's like phantom hearing in those hearing tests. But I remember going to so many different hearing tests, and I know my mom, she's in education and in special education, in fact, and she's an incredible teacher. And I think it must have been really hard for her to watch somebody work as hard as I was working and have some of the challenges that I did. So I have a lot of sympathy for my parents sometimes with dealing with somebody with an invisible problem that even nobody would have known, to like look under the hood on. So, and even now as a parent, I have to really fight to advocate the right way for my kids. And maybe I go a little overboard because I know, especially when they were younger with hearing, ear infections and COVID and being sick all the time, I was probably more aggressive than some in both wanting to protect them from getting sick all the time or being worried about their inner ear issues. You can transfer it onto your kid, even though maybe they're not having a problem. It's me that's reliving it, not wanting them to go through it. And then, ironically, this is like small nuances. I probably, when I thought about being a parent, like I'm a water bug. Even with all my here, like you with acting, like you don't know, like you don't even factor, your physical differences in wanting to be an actress. I I think I'm a mermaid. Like I think I have gills behind my ears, not actual like heavily easily infected ears. And I always thought I'd be swimming like fish with my kids, but I don't go under the water that often at all anymore. And they don't see me swim like I know, like I was on swim team, dive team. Of course, I was on dive team with an inner ear problem, which didn't help either. Left so much of my hearing on the bottom of the pool floor, probably. But ignoring ear infections I had so that I could compete all the time. And now I'm looking at my kids, they both don't love to put their head under the water and they're not the swimmers that I thought they were going to be. And it breaks my heart. And I'm really trying to think through this summer and try even more gear. Like they have these head wrap things with I don't care what I have to put. I'm going to look like the cone head if I have to, but I'm going to be like, look, this is what we've got to do because I want them to enjoy the water and see it as something to like relax in, but they see me not relaxing as much and like palling around in the water and they're more reserved in the water because of it. And I like hate that for them. So
mm,
I have to really I've started to be more tender and gentle and forgiving of what I can't do anymore, but I'm now going, I have to maybe push myself out of my comfort level. And now it's really about integrating this into my life and finding my way into things that I can do because I feel like I've spent the last like 3 or 4 years since it really got bad being like, I can't.
mm,
And I've had weight gain. I've had like, I know I'm not as strong as I used to be. I used to swim all the time. It was my main source of exercise. And I'm, I have to wear, I don't, this is like so TMI, but I feel like this is what we're here for. I have to wear like a cotton ball in my ear to take a shower.
mm.
Do you have to do that? Do you have to do
I
this
do
sort of thing?
not, but
Probably
I
not.
used
It's the worst because I hate cotton ball. Like I don't like that touch. Maybe I have some sensory issues.
to hate cotton balls. I
Oh
talk about
my
it
God,
all the time.
you're
Hate
my
them.
twin. I
They're
hate them.
horrible.
I don't want to touch them. It's like chalk,
Oh.
that chalky, it's the worst. So I hate that feeling and having to do that when you want to relax and just get in the shower, get in the bath. Again, there's so many things that this gets into trying to protect myself from ear infections. And I'm like, all the things that used to relax me now, I need them the most as a mom between like caring for myself and my personal hygiene and recreation and then jumping into the ocean or jumping into waves and swimming in the, sea with my kids. There's so many things and there has been like grief around the carefree life that I had, but I have to say it's people like you and other people in the community where I look around and I go like, you're okay. It's okay to be sad about that. And you've posted maybe one or two times at least since I've been following you about like today's just not the day. I'm not getting out of bed. And I'm like, yes. Because every time you like post, I'm like, she's just always out there doing it. And some days I just and like I don't realize how tired I am from having to think through all of these things. And I still don't give myself time, like, I had to learn to tell my husband, like, I am touched out. Like, I can't take any more noise and the static and what that does to you psychologically. And then you talk about dancing. And like, I did yoga after my first kid. Yoga, when your equilibrium and your balance and your vertigo is just going strong, like, good luck. And so the two main ways that I was taking care of myself, all because of this stupid ear problem, and you hear the way that I talk about it, this stupid ear problem, I really still haven't gotten to a place of like, this is a blessing and a curse, a gift and a burden. I've been very much probably sulking in it more than I wish I was. And that's why your community and the work that you do gets me to, I need to laugh about things to kind of accept them. It's how I work out probably my anger at them. Your work, like that video you posted yesterday from the Oval Office, I said that to everybody because I was like, have you even thought this way? Like, this is it. This is the whole thing. This is all of it in one video, and she nailed it. And like, this is why you should have a show, like, just your little skits. Like, can we have like an only disabled community SNL? And all we're gonna do is like skits about like getting through life with a weird hidden disability invisible thing going on
I
and how
love
different the world changes. It opens the world up in a way that I'm so grateful for. But
Yeah.
there are some days where I'm like, I just want to get in the shower and not deal with the cotton balls,
No more cotton
which is
balls.
such a ridiculous thing to complain
No,
about.
no, it's not because cotton balls are
They are the worst.
absolute worst. My sister teases me about my hatred for cotton balls. When she used to send me packages when she was still living at home and I was in school, she used to send me packages from home and she used to line the top of them with cotton balls. And it was, she's evil. Okay, she's
Did
evil.
she know that you didn't, she knew you didn't like them? Oh my God, that's like a special kind
Evil.
of like trolling.
No,
That
she's
like,
she's the worst. I love her, but the she came out of the womb as like an evil genius. Like
oh
when
my
she's mad
God.
at me as a child, she wouldn't do normal things like I don't know what normal things are because I didn't have a normal sibling, but she she would get really mad at me and then I would go to brush my teeth that night and she'd cut all the bristles off my toothbrush.
Wait, she older or younger?
She's younger.
God
She's
bless.
3.5 years younger. One time she got mad at my mom, and the next morning my mom woke up to find all of the bananas in the house had been opened by her, and the fruit flies were everywhere.
This is second child syndrome, just
No,
so you
she
know. I don't
is
know if
an
you know about
evil.
second child syndrome, but like that's my second. Like he knows what he's doing. Like he knows, and he's known from day one. And I've been like, I don't know, man. I don't know about this one. Like I've got to really keep an eye on him. But I bet in so many ways, like what an incredible, surprising gift in a way to have somebody that was like, I don't care what your problem is, I'm still gonna like screw around with you.
Oh
You know
yeah,
what I
she's
mean?
like
Like she didn't
perfectly.
toss us it at all. She's
Nope.
like, no, I'm still gonna I'm gonna make life a little harder, even harder,
Yeah,
and did not care.
she did not care in the slightest. She actually uses my height against me because she outgrew me fast. And she still, if she gets mad at me and we're both home, she puts like my coffee cup on the top shelf. No, she's evil. She
She
really is.
like really F's
She also
around
doesn't
and
watch
finds out.
I know I can trash talk her. She doesn't watch any of my
How
stuff.
how do you get back at her?
I don't. I blast her in front of hundreds of
You
them.
blast her in front of hundreds of people. Okay. Well,
Um,
so wait, can I
what?
ask some rapid fire questions?
Do
Because
it.
I'm like a nerd for Cassidy. I'm like your. Do you have a fan club? Should I start your fan page?
Go
We
for
probably should start a fan page.
it. We probably should. I mean, if you want to, if you want
I
to
think because like, well, that
be
way
part of it.
also people will know, like, they'll be like, oh my God, she has a fan page, and then she has fans and her own
I think, oh
page.
my gosh, you know what it was one time? My sister, it's all going back to Ella. Ella, once I was involved in this music program, and I was probably like the least well-known artist. I was like 15, 13, something like 14, I don't know. And I was the least well-known musical artist in this whole group that I was in. And it was like this showcase. And this one kid was really, really well known. And he had his own fan page. And I came home and I was like, Mom, I'm so jealous of this like other kid. He has his own fan page. Like he's so cool. So my sister made a Cass Huff fan page and like leaked photos. This was back when I had no followers. I had
Oh
like
my
barely I had like
God.
maybe 30 followers and was like on Instagram because I was like 14. She like leaked photos of me. She was like leaked photo of Cassidy Huff, and she'd take like a photo of the back of my head in like grocery stores. And like she was like, "You're a kid." Like I was in the car
She's
before
just like trolling you. She just trolls you.
I don't know if it's still up, but it was the Instagram
Oh, I'm gonna find it.
Huff fan page, and everybody thought like, oh my gosh, Cassidy's so famous, she has a fan page in like high
Yeah.
school, and it was really just my little sister like taking photos of me being like leaked. Cassidy's at Safeway right
Oh,
now. I was like, she's
like she's the paparazzi
yes,
following you around taking
yes, and
bad
then she
pics.
was like, "Did you see Cassidy's new performance that she's doing?" And this, and it had like 20 followers, and it was like all my
I want to be in this group. I want to
well,
be
now
part of
she's
this.
like, I don't want anything to do with, I don't want to be in your TikToks. I don't want to be on your Instagram. Like,
Oh no.
she's also like
Well,
19. So, like, you
there's also something like genius though when you think about the reverse, and this might pivot into some questions I want to ask. The reverse kind of psychology involved of a fan page for a disabled actress that trolls her,
yeah,
like as if like you're a snowflake and we all have to be like so nice and so
yeah,
PC. And it's like, no, you control me just like anybody else. And I have a good attitude about it. And I'm getting there. And that's where you teach me so much because like I have to admit, like I still very much am sensitive about it as a weakness and seeing it as something almost, and something about hearing loss in particular, people think maybe you're a little less intelligent. Like
mm,
there's like when I remember when I was young, I did this I was obsessed with Helen Keller, which should have told me everything I needed to know. Like who's like in the second grade and reads 6 books on Helen Keller? Maybe somebody with a hearing problem. I really was into her and just found the whole thing really fascinating. Like her behavior, she had behavioral issues and really struggled until Braille came along. And I, uh, I, I can't. A part of me sits back and goes, "It." I'm very sensitive because we would portray people, at least with hearing loss, you were deaf, blind, and dumb. I
yeah,
don't know why we added that term at the end, but people assume an intelligence problem, and I think that's what's made so much of progress in this area so wonderful to see that we're really sensitive about that and like fighting against that. I think it's ridiculous we still have to, but I think that's also where when it comes to like elections and politics and what's happening with the disabled community, you sit back and go like, this community, I think, is actually going to be one of the most important to watch in terms of upcoming elections and where they go, because statistically and historically, it's a 50-50, like it's like
yeah.
45-55, like Republican, Democrat. And you can tell me maybe more about why you think that is and know why that is. The only research I had ever really done into that effect was that there is a very strong pro-life group, and community around it because they want to make sure that we're protecting all the diverse ways that people come into the world. And there's a lot of people on the neurodivergent spectrum and who are in the autism community or the intellectual disabilities community that are very pro-life for very valid reasons when it comes to all of this. And yet, at the same time, I've always had trouble, and I don't know in your community if you can tell me at your age group how those conversations go, because right now it's like, well, we're going on like year 10 of this sort of cruelty towards the vulnerable and to the marginalized. Why do they think they're protected from that? And why would they stand for it? Because when I have to sit back, and again, I think the left, as we've said, has our own problems with really living up to our own values when it comes to DEI. Case in point, why we met at all. But it is fascinating to me. And maybe that's how people who are more conservative make their bed with it, because they're like, look, I don't really see you guys making sure that there's an interpreter at all your events. So they might be making fun of me, but at least there's an interpreter, you know? Is that maybe the attitude to your point about like that sort of resilience takes over and says like we're all making fun of each other equally, I think, because even to this day, when I think back to like maybe the point for me that is the hardest is when people mock a disabled person. And even I've been mocked to my face by friends my age or older about hearing loss where they'll mock like the way a deaf person with a speech
A deaf
who has
accent,
speech
yeah.
issues, yeah, deaf accent will speak. And before I had really significant problems, I think I probably would have played along.
Mm.
And I can't believe that now. And it is one of those like moments where as you grow up and age, you become hopefully more sensitive to what people are walking around with. But then you do age and go, oh, everybody's got their thing. We've got to laugh at some things sometimes. But laughing at them and your universality of like all having things is different than saying those people are funny and it's
Yeah.
because they have this.
Yeah.
Like there's a fine line. And I don't know where you stand on any of that, but I'm fascinated to see what happens in politics as we see erasure happening. I'd love to know where those pro-life voters end up when it comes to erasing people in this community.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting because you're getting into the topic of like eugenics and as far as erasing people with disabilities, period.
Will
But
you explain what eugenics is for people that might not know?
yeah,
Which I can't believe we have to explain in 2025, but here we are.
eugenics is um the erasure of disabled people as
Like in the
well
gene pool,
in
like
the
wanting
gene
to
pool.
erase them
Yeah.
from the gene pool.
Yeah. Yeah, like not wanting to have any babies at all who have any kind of disability. Um, and it's wild to me that even exists. But truthfully, I think the reason we're dealing with a lot of things that we're dealing with now is ableism as a whole. I mean, I think the reality is, and I've heard this argument so many times from everybody on Facebook in my comment section, but everybody on Facebook are 60 or older in my comment section. And a lot of them are old white men who just have to tell me their opinions on my existence. And
It's their job.
obviously, yeah, they're retired. They have nothing else to do. Um,
They like yell from the rafters.
yeah,
I think
yeah,
that's what they
yeah, with
do from
their
the
cane. Get
front
off
porch.
my
Like,
lawn, yeah. And then I have to be
with
like,
their cane. With their
with
cane,
their
they'll
cane,
tell
you're
you,
disabled.
yeah. Anyway, can't hear, disabled. Go ahead, guys.
Um, But they all love to tell me, well, back in that day, there were never any disabled people ever. And I was like, no, there were. The problem is that they were institutionalized, so you didn't see them. And so
Or
now
just like
we're dealing,
left in the middle of the woods.
literally, now we're dealing, or taken away from their parents and locked up and told that their baby passed away.
Yep.
Um, or their parents voluntarily locked them up and they were just in there. Which I think if not everybody who's listening, if you haven't watched Crip Camp on Netflix, go watch it. It's
I
about the
have not.
disability rights movement. and it is, if you're disabled,
I
if you're
have to.
disabled, you need to. They touch a little bit on the institutionalization of disabled people. Um, it's truly phenomenal. And so I think that all those old white men in my comments section, you gotta realize, are in the same demographic and the same age group of the people who are currently leading our country, who are just concerned with themselves, who don't even really know or understand that disabled people exist. They don't care about you. And if they do know that they exist, they don't care about you. So they are not thinking until they are so old that they are in a wheelchair. Um, because that's what age does to you. Everybody's gonna be in this demographic and this marginalized group at some
Actually,
point.
at some
Hopefully,
point,
you
good
will.
point.
You will.
Yeah.
Otherwise, the other option is death. So,
And that vulnerability is at the root of the problem. I know it's been a problem for me. My husband had, and again, I don't want to speak to everybody's like
sure.
personal biz, like he has, like he had I think a tore ACL, you know, people have sports injuries. I never had an injury growing up, like a major, I never broke an arm. I did knee myself in the face diving though once, which is I've thought like maybe that was my equilibrium and I didn't realize it, but I fractured my cheekbone. I kneed myself in the face. I'm
Oh,
the only person that my parents know that ever kneed herself in the face intentionally.
ow.
But I was practicing a spin and I was practicing my dive and I kneed myself so hard that I fractured my cheekbone.
Oh.
Point is that that's the only thing I did, but like it didn't really like you couldn't do anything.
Mm.
But I never had to recover from an injury until I went through 2 pregnancies, which is a question I wanna get some tea I wanna spill with you is on that
Yeah.
experience. And then, um, dealing with this recurring issue, this is where I'll get like I'm gonna ping pong for a minute, but as our current president talks about, he does the weave. I'm gonna do the weave real quick.
You're gonna weave.
I'm gonna weave. But the point is that, going through 2 pregnancies, one with cholesteatoma, being told I was gonna have to have surgery after I had the baby, blowing that off because I was postpartum and underslept and dealing with all the things that come with being postpartum, trying to take care of myself, getting sick, losing my hearing because I wasn't taking care of myself or asking for help as some of us are want to do when we've struggled and made it through ourselves. Um, I think that what the collective of all of that does is you sort of like revert into yourself and
Mm.
you're like, I can't explain this every single time I need help because I feel so defensive about it. And I'm awaiting somebody to give me suggestions that are so obvious to them as to why this should be easier for me. And um, I've tried to put my guard down when it comes to humor sometimes with others because I do want to try to think that sometimes it's how they're dealing to your point about like older people. It's like how we're all dealing with the awkwardness of our own vulnerability with our bodies and how they're changing. That said, I think uh, the cruelty of I'm grateful in a way that it happened to me later because it was like I don't know if you're too young to know a field of the movie Field of Dreams. Have you seen the movie Field of Dreams? Oh, this is where I'm going to be like, in my day, that was on all the time. Nobody above the age of 35 or 40, I feel like, hasn't seen Field of Dreams because it's like on TV, it's on a station somewhere all the time. And there's this scene where somebody who, it's like about this guy who sees this baseball game going on that nobody else can see. For me, it happened later, but that's where I could like see, I could start to see the full ball game. And as much as pregnancy and kids at my age took from me with injuries, back problems, knee problems, being so underslept because I'm sleeping with my baby because I can't hear him in the other room that I stubbed my pinky toe 3 times in the last 2 years and break it significantly. I sit back and I go like there's so many hidden things that people are walking around with and yet and this is I'm leading up to something, but in the state of Virginia, I'm considered disabled by their standards. I don't meet the criteria for national standards. Now, who knows if that's all going to be taken away in the next couple of months too, but I fall short on there's like a decibel level. It's like a whole thing you go through in terms of meeting certain criteria for hearing loss. And I wasn't trying to qualify as disabled for it. I struggled to apply for it at all. Like I felt like again, I went through this whole thing where I was like, I'm taking somebody's spot and there's somebody else that needs with help. And the woman I was working with was like, yeah, it's you. And you deserve this
Yeah.
support. And that was the whole thing for me. But pregnancy, when you're dealing with a hidden in disability, which at the time I didn't think of as a disability, when you're pregnant, towards the end of your pregnancy, you go on disability leave at work.
Mm.
If you don't have paid leave, you take disability. So you file and you meet, at least in the federal side, you meet the technical criteria for disabled.
Mm.
I've been arguing or asking, and I'm going to ask you this long question. Um, there's obviously people who have pre-existing disabilities. I was asking during the election, are pregnant people, should they be able to use our designated parking for the disabled? And then, and what about people who have just had babies who are postpartum? They could be recovering from a C-section. They could be um, dealing with postpartum depression or other, emotional, invisible mental health problems. When I brought that up, was like crickets when I talked to different people within the disabled community about it. And the answer we arrived at was this is for people with a disability in these specific ways. And this privileges a group of people that are already privileged who can have children. And I didn't know what to make of it. And there was no time, and I wasn't trying to like pick a fight over it. But I'm putting you in the hot seat to say, like, it's really hard for me not to say, and this is where I go, like, when is a pregnant person dealing with a life or not? Because I'm like, if you're super pro-life, then the minute I pee on that stick, do I get to park in your special parking spaces? Are you going to check my pregnancy test?
Yeah.
And then you don't offer paid leave when I go on maternity leave. I have to take disability, but then I'm not disabled. It's so confusing knowing what you are as when you're going through having kids.
Yeah.
So that's a long-winded story, but it's there to demonstrate like I'm this hot mess, rolling into certain places. And I can't even talk about what a parking lot is like when you can't hear very well, especially with EVs and like trying to get kids in the car and knowing where they are, like the panic. I think I've broken into like a full sweat in parking lots trying to get my kids in the
Yeah.
car. And the few times I've parked in like the parking lot for parents, I've gotten side eye, like, yo, you're not pregnant. And I'm like, I would park in the disabled, but I can't get a disabled parking pass because I'm not technically disabled.
Mm.
And yet I'm having a full blown panic attack trying to get my kids in the car without them getting hit by an EV who gets a front spot, by the way, to charge his car.
That's another thing.
So, how's that for a long winded rant?
Another thing.
I was like, so you
Spots.
EVs get the parking spots? But I've got two small kids in a parking lot. I can't hear your car because I'm half deaf. I don't qualify for a disability pass, so I can't park in the blue spots. And then when I park in the parent spot, you look at me sideways because my kids are older.
So, number one, to your point about EVs, I hate them. Hate
Why
them.
do they get special parking?
They should be in the back, actually.
It makes no sense. Make the people who are using gas cars drive more.
Yeah. So we went to Disney last week, and they have parking spots now. That the thing, the plate, whatever it's called, the stand.
Fine,
Yeah,
right,
thank you.
whatever.
The sign says EV parking or disability parking. And I was like, I'm gonna throw down. Who decided this was a good idea?
Oh,
I was like, I will be parking in an EV spot just to spite all of you. I do not care. I do not care. To your point about pregnant
That
people.
is wild. But yeah, and I know there's a lot of topics in there, but it is like this is an example of where I've had to learn grace and be like,
No, I agree.
this is why you can't judge what you're seeing because I know people see me and go, how the hell are you disabled?
Yeah,
You have two kids. You are able to have two kids. They're fine. They're not in a wheelchair. They're not using a walker.
yeah.
You don't look disabled. You're not acting disabled, but they have no idea that I can't hear anything that's going on. And I'm having a anxiety attack because I think my kids are going to get run over by the EV that's parking ahead of me.
That part. Yeah, I think that first of all, the whole you don't look disabled thing, hate it. Obviously, I don't get people making that comment to me unless I film from here up. Then people are like, "You're disabled?" And I'm like, "Go look at all my other
Like,
content."
do I wear a special hat that says I'm deaf?
Hello.
Like,
Yeah,
and I'm not deaf. I'm half deaf, but do I need to explain it and show you my hearing test?
I
Like,
think that argument is absolutely ridiculous. There is no right or wrong way to look disabled. Also, what does disabled look like? Because somebody who's in a wheelchair, okay, are they disabled, but somebody who uses a walker isn't? Like, is the wheelchair the only thing? What about somebody with a prosthesis? What about somebody who is blind with, you
I
know,
live in Northern Virginia near a military base. Do you think I don't feel insecure? Like, what if there are people walking through the parking lot at the Wegmans with prosthetics all the time?
yeah, exactly.
You don't think I like take all the parking you need, buddy? Like, if you need my spot, I'll give it to you. I feel insecure as it is
Yeah,
with somebody like that, but I know I get side eye from those people sometimes.
yeah,
Like, girl, I can walk around with my, blah 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 going on, and
yeah.
I'm like, I don't know what to
Okay.
tell you. I just can't deal today with the cars
I just
and
can't
the
interact. I'm
kids.
just a girl. Leave me
It's
alone.
hard enough to take a 4-year-old to the grocery when
I
you don't have a hearing problem, but it's like
just
insane. You talk about ADHD. Whoa,
Yeah.
it's not
As
easy,
far
but
as your argument about pregnant people, I've truly never thought about that. But I think you're, well, probably because I've never had a child. But I think you're correct. I mean, I think that the biggest issue is maternity leave. Um, because we are, somebody's gonna correct me on this in the
any
comments.
kind of paternity leave,
Yeah.
caregiving for
I
somebody,
I think
but
I think I read somewhere that we're one of the countries with the lowest maternity leave time.
of
Um,
course,
because
we're
yeah,
supposed to like have them and go back to work, which I did twice, but
obviously,
go ahead.
obviously, you don't need recovery. You're fine. Just push a baby out. You're okay.
It's actually a little easier in the beginning. It's about 6 months in when you really start to lose it
Yeah.
because your kid starts moving around and crawling. And if you have any kind of injury trauma that you've dealt with,
Yeah.
you start replaying so many tapes. And that's actually when I see more women and people struggle with postpartum is like three
Yeah.
to 6 months in when they're like, I don't want to go back to work and I'm like, take the leave when you need it, spread it out. You don't have to take it all in the beginning.
Yeah.
It's so complicated, but I keep interrupting you, so I'm
I
sorry.
think that no, it's okay. I think that people who have given birth in general and should apply or should qualify to for like a temporary disability placard. And I think they should have it for somebody's gonna yell at me in the comments. I really don't care. I think they should have it for at least a year,
Oh,
at
wow.
minimum a year. Um, just to be safe,
You
because
don't because you don't know, like,
you can't know.
what
You
if you had a special needs child and you're still learning even how to what if you never had any special needs whatsoever growing up and you're trying now to parent a special needs child?
Yeah,
What I was told was the parking, I know it sounds so tedious, but like, let me drive. I was like, here's a scenario. You're doing pickup. It's 5 o'clock. You're trying to race to the polls. You've got to pick up three kids from school. One of them's in a wheelchair. The other might have intellectual disabilities. You're in the car and going and standing in line for an hour to vote at 6 o'clock when everybody else is voting
can't do that.
might be a little high stim for everybody.
A little.
And you might want that person to just vote from the car.
Yeah,
I bet we do not properly message, and this is where I hope campaigns hear me, and I hope I get into trouble with some of the election workers because I want to have these conversations now. I wish we were advertising to parents through the schools or through the disabled communities or the special ed classrooms that you have access to parking so that you'll go vote and that your vote really matters. And it applies to parents and caregivers of children with special needs
Agreed.
or even seniors with special or disability needs. If
Yeah.
you're caring for someone, I don't think we advertise that, and I know I'm going to get into trouble putting some people on blast here. I was told it's fine if they want to use it. We're not going to say anything, but we're not going to advertise that.
Hmm.
And I was like, obviously, I understand what I'm asking like 2 weeks out from the election. But it's why I'm starting to raise my hand now
Yeah.
in these calls to
As you should.
say all these channels in parent, it's already like there aren't enough on ramps for parents in communication with elections, but reaching disabled parents of disabled students or differently abled students or special needs students, that's a whole community, and we don't tell them anything about their rights when it comes to voting at all. And I'm very curious. Like, I'm such a nerd that I literally spent a good amount of time digging into how many people are disabled in Virginia,
Mm.
how many are registered voters, and how many didn't vote and why.
Mm. Are
Because
there
I'm like,
actual statistics on that?
I couldn't find a
Yeah.
breakdown,
I was
but
gonna
I'm
say
like,
if you could, that would. I was like, is that
right, like even studying the problem,
Yeah.
of like, we have 940,000 disabled people in the state of Virginia.
Yeah.
And again, back to that map, if you Google the state of Virginia and the election turnout, obviously Northern Virginia and most of like Central Virginia leans purple and is pretty blue up top.
Yeah.
The rest is pretty red. That is flipped, like, or that red map is where the highest concentration of disabled voters are.
Mm.
And I was like, I would love to know what the communication plan is for our voters in those rural districts to let them know if you're running short on time that you can vote from the car. And it sounds like such a small thing, but
No.
it's small things like this that if I have my kids and I'm wiped out and I could vote from the car, that makes a huge difference and could really help turnout in some really
Yeah.
key districts amongst an audience that we should be caring about.
Yeah.
So I don't mean it to put election workers on blast because they're already doing like so much hard work. But to this community, if you're listening, if you want to get involved, and this is like the kind of work that I think is pretty nonpartisan, frankly, um, get involved with your local elections within the disability community and say, hey, I want to get the word out about disabled parking and who qualifies for disabled parking. And I want to get it out to like the schools or make a flyer that goes in like the teachers, special ed teachers inbox and says, make sure that you know you have this as a right. So, I mean, it's a whole nother conversation about whether or not I think
Yeah.
teachers should be allowed to have special parking to go vote. But um, I thank you for letting me say my little speech about parking
No, of
and
course.
voting.
I
And I
think
think when I think about voting access, it's like the mail,
yeah.
registration, even the websites. Some of these websites are not like there isn't that little button that will read them to you. Um, I'm learning all about the tools that don't exist and even letting people know. And I've had some really powerful conversations with people who have intellectual children with intellectual needs or disabilities. And those are tough. Those are tough conversations to get into in terms of their rights. And there are people that don't think they should be voting, and I don't think we pay enough attention as a community about mobilizing around this. And I'm like, if you can't protest, this is a great thing for us all to start working on because it's going to take a
100%.
lot to fix it. There's a lot that needs to happen to fix it.
Yeah. Okay, we do have to wrap up because my editor's gonna hate me if we don't.
I
Um,
know, but I have so many. Can we do
oh,
1 minute of Bravo?
yes, we need to do 1 minute of Bravo. Go.
Let's do 1 minute of Bravo. What are you watching and who are your
Oh,
favorite people? My tastes are changing, but I want you to go first.
I really love trashy reality TV. I really do. I
So
love
are
it.
you Vanderpump? Tell me you're Vanderpump. Are
I've
you no
never
Vanderpump?
seen Vanderpump.
You have to
I
watch
know.
Vanderpump Rules.
I
If you
know.
like trashy reality TV, like what are you doing?
I know. I love all like the Love is Blind. I love Don't love the title, but you get it. I love like
That's a fair point.
mm,
What are we even doing? Are there any blind people on the show?
no.
How have we never talked about this? I look so ignorant right now. Like,
Yeah,
is there a
Love
love
is
is deaf? Like,
no.
no.
And Love is Blind, it's literally because you don't see the person
No, I
um
know, but like,
until you propose. Yeah.
which
Yeah,
is a wild thing. Okay,
it's
so you
wild.
like Love is Blind,
I love
although we're going to
like
set aside the offensiveness of the TV show's name.
yes, we are. It's okay. I love The Ultimatum. I know these shows are like so controversial, but I still love them.
It's okay. I
I
mean,
love the
that's
drama.
why.
I love drama that I'm not involved in. I also I also really love classics. Like I love The Office, I love Modern Family, those kinds of things. I'm currently watching Modern Family all the way through for the first time.
Oh my gosh, really?
Loving
I've
it.
never watched like a ton of it, but it's
It's
good.
so fun. I also, Kaz and I are watching Schitt's Creek and New Girl because he's never seen them.
I
So,
have only watched little bits of Schitt's Creek and I'm so behind on it because everybody's like, you're insane. You will love this
so
show. And I'm like, I
I
know, I'm
love
trying. There's a lot to get to.
it. Okay, so those are
This is
mine.
why,
What are yours?
if you were in Vanderpump Land last year, let me tell you, there was like nothing else anybody could do with their lives after Scandal. Like, we all, for like 9 months, we couldn't operate in the world before Sandoval. That was like Scandival was like the QAnon for Bravo watchers. It was like
Mm,
our own world where we were going through something together. Is the world as we know it what we think? The answer is no. It was
no.
a harbinger. I used to be really into Real Housewives for a long
Mm,
time. Like I got fixated, and I don't code as like a Bravo Real Housewives viewer, obviously, but like I was so fascinated by these women and like I don't understand your worlds. Like
yeah.
just so much about them was so different than me that I was really more watching from like a fascination point of
Mhm.
like how do these people exist? And then I don't know, I just started feeling like this is just a lot of rich people fighting over really dumb shit and like I
Have you
don't care.
seen Secret Lives of Mormon Wives?
No, I have like a real problem with like the faith-based characters sometimes. I'm still a practicing Catholic, I
Mm,
know. And I get weird about the religion stuff sometimes with the
fair.
characters. Like I have like real problems. I'm like, it gets kind of ick with me,
Mm,
but I know that they're fascinating at the same
so
time.
fascinating.
And then the last thing, I am a Southern Charm watcher,
Okay.
although I think that show has a lot going on that
Mm,
maybe I don't know what again is polite to say, but my tea on that is if you watch the men on that show in a specific way, it really takes on a different dynamic, is all I'll say. Like, what's this show really about? Is maybe where I'll leave it. Because it's about like, it is about like the bachelors and the bachelorettes, in this like very much this Southern, like, romance story.
mm.
But I think sometimes you can watch that show a different way, is all I'll say. And I invite people to watch it from maybe just a different point of view on
Just maybe
what's
look at
what's really going on with these guys. And are the girls really just the guest stars, if you know what I mean?
it.
And I shouldn't say that because it outs people, I guess, but it's meant as a joke because it is such a broy show.
Mm.
And as with anything that gets like super broy, you're like, what's
What's happening here?
going on with you guys? Like, so my husband and I, yes, he watches. That
Yes,
is one of our favorite shows to watch because we
love.
watch it through this lens of like, oh, Shep and Shep, they're fighting. The guys are fighting again, and
The
it's
guy,
mostly
the
the
boys are
guy.
fighting.
It's mostly the guys fighting, and you're like,
What is this
there's,
really about?
yeah, what is this really about? So I kind of, we enjoy watching that, and he watches a lot of like outdoorsy reality TV that doesn't get categorized as reality TV.
Okay.
It's like a lot of like rescuing people in the desert, like people
All right.
getting stranded and like lumberjack things, but I shouldn't put them on blast, but there it is. I'm
That's
so grateful to
interesting.
you and I hope we get to chat again. I feel like I have to call you once a week just to like go over things.
I know,
You're
just to
like
like,
my coach, but I have to say everybody listening to this, thank you for bearing with us. Cassidy's so patient with me. I'm just an old lady trying to figure out how to deal with my hearing and my body now that I've put it through the ringer. And if you want to listen to Moms Have No Party, it is for everybody.
Yeah.
You find us on Apple, iTunes, and Spotify, and then we're on Substack and Blue Sky. And we're thinking about getting back into X for a few reasons.
Oh,
Uh-huh.
I have not been on X forever.
I know, me too, but we might have to wade back into those waters because we were really trying to talk to parents. There are a lot of split
Yeah.
households that are dealing with some difficult issues, like we were talking about with the disabled community, and we'd like to try to reach people where they're at,
Yeah.
but I'm going to have to like wear a helmet and a hazmat suit. Thank you, Cassidy, and thank you to everybody. Find us if you want, and you know I'm going to be listening to you. You'll see me in the comments. I'm always blowing Cassidy up.
The comments, my DMs, it's fun. We have a
I have to get on your fan page. I have to start the fan page. I have to get the shirt and the merch. Like I need a hat.
okay. Well,
Like
I do sell
we've
merch,
got.
so check that out.
I know. I know. I think I need to get some because I just want to roll through the Wegmans and see if anybody stops me. But
I love it. I love it.
tell your mom I said hi, and let's do the mom episode
Yes,
soon. We
100%.
have to. We
No,
have
we
to.
will. You'll see me on her podcast next. So
It's
on a
true.
dot.
I'm getting good at the camera. I'm trying to get good with the camera stuff. I hate
No,
it.
you
I'm
were
gonna
so
have
nervous
like,
for this one, but it was so good. It was so easy.
oh,
It calmed right down. I saw it.
I don't know. I feel weird about it, but thanks for everybody bearing with me and my nervousness. I'll talk to you soon, Cass.
And thank you for listening
Y-
and watching to The View from 4 Feet and 3 Inches. Please make sure to like, comment, subscribe, give a 5-star rating, depending on where you're listening and watching. Go follow me on all my other platforms because I do post every single day on Instagram, Facebook Reels, TikTok, and YouTube Shorts. I post a YouTube vlog that comes out every Wednesday and a podcast episode here on The View from 4 Feet and 3 Inches, out every single Sunday, out everywhere you listen to podcasts. And we will see you next time. Bye.